Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging with all these nerds.
Ted.
Ryan.
Nate the Nerdarch.
Today we'll be doing a terrible terrain where we talk about the Death Pit!
If you want to jump down the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
So, I was on my way over to Ted's basement where we film. I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about how the U.S. government, has the Department of Agriculture has this facility set up where they basically are studying, the genome to cows and trying to figure out how to make, more twins happen. But there's a lot of these horrible things that are happening as well, and they literally
in
have
service of optimizing meat production.
Yeah,
right.
But they literally have a place there called the Death Pit where they kind of just throw everything that didn't work and that died. And even ranchers are kind of horrified at what they do, especially in this day and age when more and more people want their food sources to be treated in a more humane way.
Right.
So I'm like, all that aside, I'm like, a death pit would be an awesome, terrible terrain for us to do. Yeah. And then I was thinking too, what if there's a necropolis or an a budding necropolis that is developing these techniques, and instead of science, they're using necromancy with things to do. But again, you're gonna have a rejection. You have the rejection pile or pit, as the case may be.
Well, it's got to be a steep pit when you're dealing with necromancy, because you don't want the things crawling back out.
That's
yeah, well, there is always that. Well, or maybe they don't have to worry about it. Maybe there's glyphs. Like a ring of glyphs or something.
That they can't go above this. And it just does radiant damage or something like that.
And then adventurers come by and they're like, ow, this thing keeps happening. Let's break it. And then they go talk to the guy in the woods, and he's like, what the hell did you guys do? Zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, it's like some kind of force field or something against undead, and they're like, fish in a fish tank.
Right.
But they're dead people instead. Or dead animals, as the case may be.
Dead things, yeah.
all right. So are we looking at this as?
Was that dead fish, Nate? They're actually dead fish?
Yeah, they're actually dead fish. Well, I mean, if you're going to have an aquarium and you're a necromancer,
Why not make it an undead aquarium?
problem is trying to get them to float. They're just like a whole bunch of things flopping around on the bottom of the...
Zombie fish will do way better than skeleton zombies.
Yeah, they're already kind of pre-bloated.
Or skeleton fish. I think that would be weird. The water goes right through them. They can't really move it very well.
Well, I mean, if you're having a skeletal fish, I'm going to say the magic's involved and it can still do what it does.
So death pits.
Exactly.
With the death pit, are we talking about something that's massive, that there's going to be some kind of dungeon associated with it, with snake
You're not going to want to have to go
back
down there and dig a new hole. So,
or is this just a single pit, 30, 40 feet across and 100 foot deep? What are we talking here?
Yeah. Could be any of those, right? Right? It could be the mega dungeon, or it could literally be the necromancer Bob. His backyard, he's got a hole where he throws shit. So it depends. What route are you going? Are we talking about a necropolis with a magocracy, which just happen to be a necromagiocracy, who it's an organization or a government, and they're working on it. So the body count's going to be much higher than just Bob's.
Right. That's
true. I would say an old strip mine or an old series of mines would be a great place to throw a whole bunch of dead bodies.
But that could just be it, or a gorge that happens to naturally be occurring. And they're like, this is a good place, and they put up their necro fence that keeps things from coming in, and it becomes a problem because the kingdom over doesn't have a necro fence, and
every once in a while things wander out.
Yeah, what are you doing? It's almost like the cattle ranchers when their stuff wanders to the other persons and they kind of take it, but in this case they don't want it because they're like, it's eating our children. Can you please keep this back?
It's like cattle wrangling.
Build your own necro wall. We're not going to do that.
We're going to build a necro wall,
and the other kingdom's going to pay for it. Yeah. Exactly.
So I was thinking what happens if they built this death pit,
this necro city on rockin' skulls. Yeah, and this city,
and they had it, maybe as part of the chasm, or maybe they built areas so that it can contain as much as they need to throw down there. But after so much time, these things are still not alive, but not dead, and they've moved, and what happens if someone had poor planning and like
That never happens in a bureaucracy ever.
they dug through and it's now connected to the crypt.
Yeah, that's what all the paperwork's for.
To make sure
So
that doesn't
It
happen.
makes 100% goodness happen.
Well,
So-
yeah.
So you've got these necrotic beings, and you never know when magic is involved. There's always going to be the chance that something spurs.
Like
now
seepage.
Now you've got a
Necro-seepage.
spellcaster, down there as well, and now they have access to the crypts as well.
Yeah. Or, I mean, even so, we're talking about these, like, ward structures. Like, say a freak lightning storm happens and, like, hits the ward and, like, blinks that one out. And then you have room for all hell to break loose. And it could become, like, a zombie movie where, like, everything's pouring out of this one section now, coming through. So you could have things where the wards are somehow damaged by acts of nature.
You're definitely going to need Jeff Goldblum in there somewhere.
Yeah.
We had the power to do it, but no one bothered to ask the question, should we?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the other idea too, like what you were saying, is just that, and Nate really said as well, is just the idea of you throwing so many necrotic beings down there infused with necrotic energy. Like over time, what happens with that? Like that.
Maybe the wards can only hold so much, like hold back so many hit die or something in game mechanics.
Yeah,
It's starting to make me think of Pet Cemetery, like the ground is sour or whatever.
Yeah. You start getting necro seepage, or maybe the fence, the necro fence or necro wall has this unintended consequence of, it's constantly reflecting the negative energy back into the pit. So it
It's intensifying.
Yeah, because intensifies on the undead. Or
I
the
could start
area.
to see like almost like these naturally forming golems that are made out of several undead bodies. Like just like this massive
just
structure.
fuse together.
They knit together, like because you have this concentration of necromantic energies, these sort of necromutations.
I'm saying creatures from the Inhumans cartoon back in the day.
Decompose.
Pretty much. So where do we go from here? That is the question.
Well, I mean, if it's for, like, let's say it's a magocracy, you'd have enough time that you'd have quite the structure built up in there. You could have tunnels, it'd be like a dungeon.
So, so the idea is is it becoming an adventure site where it's like, we have to fix the problem, or maybe something gets put down there that shouldn't be down there and has to be recovered.
Well, you could take this in a multitude of ways. Number one, you could just say, all right, the problem in itself is it's down there and we don't want it to come out. So there could be an issue with the wards.
Zombie apocalypse.
So if the ward's going to go down, or the wards are going to go down, it's going to destroy the city. There's enough down there that there's no way to contain it all. If one of those wards fail, and they maybe they need to research new wards, maybe they need to do some kind of ritual to keep it going. You brought up something's down there that needs to be recovered. Perhaps the wizard staff, who is the key component to creating these wards, was dropped down there just due to idiocy.
Or jettison, sabotage sort of thing.
Either direction. So someone's got to go down there and get it. The seepage that you brought up, that could be intensifying, and they realize that everything that's down there is gaining more power from what's down there, and it's growing exponentially, because the more powerful it gets, the more it radiates, which sends it back in on itself because of the wards. So either they need to go somewhere, they need to research and get new ideas for wards that are going to contain, that aren't radiating. The seepage could be getting out and causing illness to the town, and that either you have to go in, or
Necroplague.
you have to go in and shut these things down, or again you need to adventure somewhere and find something, get someone that's going to be able to help with this problem.
I have a couple ideas too on this. You could have that concentration of negative energy actually opens a gate to like the realm of shadow. Could be a thing that happens, and eventually they maybe have the power to like overcome the wards. Is a possible thing. Another occurrence is this could be a very handy way in which the necro lords of this land deal with their deal with their criminals populace, the people that they want to get rid of. They send them down and then like scry on them to watch the outcomes and maybe place bets and things like that. So you have like
kind of horrible
a
game.
Running Man sort of situation,
nice.
right? So like maybe the prison, like they like open a thing that essentially it's like a lock system, and so they get them in this room and then they open the doors, and if they get out, if they survive, then they've earned their freedom.
That should be one of our next. I don't know who's going to run, who wants to run it, but that should be one of our fan games. Like instead of being members of the NAG, you're a criminal, and is
well, I mean, but you could be members of the
Falsely
NAG.
accused.
Yeah, you could be members of the NAG who get caught in these lands. Like if you're an evil necrolord.
When I say criminal, I mean criminal. You've been charged with something in these lands, and that's the adventure. Is you're being sent down there, Running Man style.
Yeah.
Which is an awesome idea. The other idea that I had was building off of the Patient Zero or Undead Zero. So the first one they send down there is down there from the very beginning, and it is the one that is absorbing all of the negative energy from the beginning of this thing, and maybe it starts to take on the sentience of each and every creature that passes through there. So it basically it creates this like Uber Lich type being or undead being or zombie lord that now has, and it becomes a sentient will behind the pit.
That's pretty cool.
And it could look for ways of getting out of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's looking for ways to get out.
I mean, how far do you have to dig down?
And to
get out? You know?
Well, that's true. Like it could be looking for other ways. It could be sending emissaries out, sneaking them out. Because, like, if you go with the idea that it's uber intelligent too, it may not be willing to just break out all at once. It may be, it might be biding its time and thinking.
Testing barriers and wards and things like that. Yeah.
Step 1, get a crawling finger out. Step 2, get a crawling hand out.
Yeah.
When they open the gate.
Yeah.
And it might be intelligent enough to go, well, if this necropolis council was able to create this, well, maybe they're able to shut it down somehow. So I have to get my reconnaissance first and figure out what kind of threat they are. And like you could even play the game where it's like a murder mystery where those guys are actually dropping like flies. And like you're looking at other kingdoms, you're looking at rivals within the council, but it turns out it's neither.
Maybe Patient Zero doesn't want to get out. He's staying here for as long as he can because his power is being intensified by staying here. But it's only going to grow so far here. So if he's sending these things out to get more data, possibly get more bodies.
Well, his ultimate plan is to become a god.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is going to happen in the pit. Call it the pit.
I think there's lots to work with here. What do you guys think? You got anything else you want to add to our death pit? How do you want to use it in your game? Put in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over on Instagram.
You can join the forums over on nerdarchy.com.
You can patronize us in a good way over at Patreon.
So until next time, stay nerdy.